I'm Kate with New Beginnings Healing Ministry, and you are watching episode 1 of Fiat, the resounding yes that will transform your life. And today we're going to be talking about faith and family. And, look around. In today's world, we're seeing so much destruction, corruption, lies, you name it, and we're seeing it right now. And I think we're seeing the result of what happens when you try to take God out of the equation. So when you take faith out of the family, you get dysfunction. It's a result of that. So now more than ever, I feel that it is very important that families, Christians, Catholics, we really need to integrate our faith into our family life. Like I said, it should never be separate. Our children need to see, us parents especially, that we value life, we value death, we value suffering, we believe in Jesus. And it all sounds easy, and it's like, okay, they know that, but in order for kids to truly catch on, they have to see us living it. We can't be hypocrites. We really can't. And if we just go to church on Sunday, and we don't implement the things that we've been learning, we can fall prey to that. So we really need to stand up now as Christians and as Catholics, and we need to reclaim our homes and our families. And, spend time in prayer with our family members, with our friends, with, people that we go to church with. We need to really build relationships now. And, in a family, even grandparents, they play such an important role. And in my family, I consider myself very blessed to have had very good role models. I'm sure many of you have also had really good role models, and that's wonderful. But my grandparents, all of them, they had a very great relationship with Jesus. And I really think it had a lot to do with the fact that they had a major devotion to Mary and to St. Joseph. So on the one side, my grandma, she used to have block rosaries. So people on her street would come in the evening and they would pray the rosary together. And, my other grandma, she led many pilgrims to Medjugorje, which is a place where Mary has been appearing. And I will talk more about Medjugorje and my experiences there in another episode. But it's a beautiful place, and she was part of that, and still is. She spreads the messages. She lives the messages, and you can tell that the love and devotion to our Lord is there, and she attributes that to Our Lady. So that's my grandma. And I also had my grandpa, who I'll share a story with. He had a very, very powerful experience. He had a great devotion to St. Joseph. And every day he would pray this prayer, and it was the prayer for a happy death. And he had a lot of heart issues in his family, so he was betting on a heart attack as his way to go. And he almost was okay with that because it was quick, and he didn't want to suffer a lot. Not to say that a heart attack is an easy way to go, because it's definitely not. No, there's no way that's easy when we're talking about death. But he thought, the least amount of suffering, the better. So he prayed and he prayed and he prayed, for years and years. And finally, when he was quite a bit older, he ended up getting a lung disease. And I can't remember, it was 8 to 10 years where he had it, and it was just a gradual decline of his health. And the last 3 to 5 years were pretty rough. And he kept saying his prayer, and then in the final days of his life, he was on hospice. And I will never forget it. We were all over at his house, and we were with him during those stages, and we were praying the rosary. And we were rubbing his feet. We were trying to make him feel as comfortable as possible. And after the rosary, we heard a knock at the door. And my aunt had just said, Jesus, please come get him. He's been suffering so much. Just come get him. It's time. Just come. And like I said, then we heard a knock at the door, and it was the deacon. And I guess the priest sent him with communion for my grandpa, which we believe the communion, that is the Eucharist, so we believe it's Jesus. And he gave a very tiny piece to my grandpa. And seconds later, he took his final breath. And come to find out, days before, he told my uncle, so his son, he said, "You know how I always wanted to die of a heart attack?" And he said, "Yeah." And he just said, "I'm so glad that didn't happen, because I wouldn't have gotten to have this time with my family and be surrounded by love when I took my last breath." And when you think about that, it was just so powerful, because, as humans, we always want, or we're always tempted to take the easy way out. None of us want to suffer, but suffering is necessary. And we know that once we get through it and we're on the other side and can look back, we see that it's good for us. It's good for our souls. It strips us of our worldliness, and it allows God to rebuild us in a way that we can become the men and women that he's calling us to be. So we know that suffering is very important, but still it's hard for us to accept that. So again, we need to be showing our children that, during this pandemic, all of their stuff getting canceled, it's terrible. It's I hate to see it. But at the same time, I don't know what's in their future, and they may need this to become equipped for that. They may need this to be conditioned. So we just need to help them navigate through these uncharted territories, because it's adversity, and that's when we're made, through suffering and adversity. If we don't have that, then just wouldn't be good, So a little story about my brother. So growing up, we always prayed at my grandma's house once a week. We'd get together for the rosary. And again, it was that devotion to Our Lady, and it truly brought us closer to the Lord, and quickly. And, they would make it fun. We'd have dessert too. So you'd have to be good during the rosary, and then you'd get a dessert. And, every week getting together and doing that. And they also always mentioned, one day your faith will be greatly shaken. It's not a matter of if, but when. And for that, we need to be ready. And for us, for my family, it was August 19th, 2009. And that was the day my brother, who was 9, his name was Dan, he was hit by a car and killed on impact. And we knew the girl who hit him. It was a very tragic, horrendous, you name it, situation all around. And I don't wish it on my worst enemy. Not that I have an enemy, but you know what I mean. It was horrible. And I won't get into all the details, but I will say that when it happened, there was instant forgiveness. And that, to me, is not normal. I get more irritated at someone who cuts me off in traffic than I do at the person who killed my brother, which tells me that there is a supernatural grace there that is allowing all of us to forgive. And my dad has said many times, he's even given a talk at some Acts retreat, if you've heard of those, but the talk was on forgiveness, and he was saying how when he lost his son, he knew a few things. He knew that it was going to be too difficult to carry the hate and the anger, and to be sad and to miss him and all of that. And he said he could do one or the other. He could either afford to waste the energy on being angry and not forgiving this young girl, or he could waste the energy on just being sad and mourning for his son's loss. And he chose to forgive, and try the best he could to heal. And I think that so many of us, if we could really just study the situation we're in and realize how much energy we are putting into something, forgiveness is a big part of healing. And we need to forgive if we want to heal. So, again, another lesson for our children, we need to allow God, we need to, whatever he brings into our life, we have to say Fiat. We have to say thy will be done. Because if we don't, then we won't grow as well. We won't heal. We may not even make it to our final destination, which is heaven. That's why we're here, to get there. So, after the accident, 30 minutes, maybe an hour after the accident, we didn't go home. We were gathered in my grandma's living room, the same living room that we had been gathering for 20 plus years, praying the rosary. And of course we were all in shock. We were probably just kind of going through the motions for the most part. But what an awesome way to, kind of set yourself on autopilot, to be going back to your faith, to be using your faith to navigate the grief process. So that is why, when we talk about prepare spiritually, we should always be growing in our faith, because we never know when we're going to really need to stand on it. If we don't have the foundation there, we will fall, and we will fall hard. And to rebuild after that, it's hard, and you never know if you'll have that time to do that. So, I've seen a happy death, and I've seen a very, very, very tragic death. And in fact, my sister, who was 6, and my mom, they both actually saw the accident happen. And we all can agree that we have a very healthy respect for death and a very healthy respect for life. And we also have realized how resilient us as adults are, but even more so the children. So again, in the middle of this pandemic and our children having to stay away from their friends and not play sports and not go to their classes and lessons and all of that, it's difficult, but again, they are resilient and they are going to be just fine if you do your job. And right now, your job is to take that teaching authority, take it back from the government, and start teaching your children about the faith. Start teaching them how to implement it into their lives. Let them know that it is normal to, want to lay down your life for someone else. It is normal to pray for other people. It's normal to hit your knees every once in a while when you really need an answered prayer. They need to see you do it if you want them to be doing it when they're older. So just remember that. And, in closing, I think for your homework, I think that it would be best if you would either find some Christian song that really speaks to you. I do have one called The Resounding Yes. It is on the Uplifting Songs playlist on my on the YouTube channel. And just listen to that song and just really just think about your life. Reflect on all of the areas that you're kind of stressing on right now. And think about Mary and Jesus and their Fiat. How many times they said, thy will be done. And it takes surrender too. So think of the areas that God is asking you to surrender in. And think of the areas that he needs you to say Fiat. Thy will be done. So thank you for listening. Have a great day.